Hey you guys, welcome back. I am TrickyMist and welcome back to the Fragmented Podcast. This is episode 6 and we are going to be talking about adaptability. Now, the adaptability is going to be referring to like how our bodies change to accommodate certain scenarios and situations and things along those matters. But before we get into that, some people are probably new to the whole Fragmented Podcast. Some of you may be wondering, what is the Fragmented Podcast? Simply put, it is a podcast that's not an entire podcast. It is probably much shorter than a lot of other podcasts. It's like, so the way that I envision podcasts, it's always like people talking to anyone that's listening. They're always like going on, and they usually tend to be like way up there, like maybe an hour long, if not. I have seen or heard some that were like 3 hours, maybe all the way up to 8 hours. And it's kind of like a radio talk show in a sense, because I feel like those are kind of like podcasts, but they're like live. They're pretty much like live at the time whenever you do end up hearing them. But for me, this whole podcast idea is just like a good way for me to like work on communicating, socializing, and just getting even better whenever I do live streams, because there's a lot of like quiet moments that I really want to get rid of. And it's just like super awkward, especially if you guys tune into like one of the streams and I'm just like not talking or like doing anything to try and like talk to like any of the viewers that are actually watching. And I really just want to get rid of all that and just like keep the conversation going, even if there isn't really a conversation going, even if it's just talking about the day, who knows. But in today's topic, like I said, we are going to be talking about adaptability. Now, what is adaptability? What comes to mind when you think about adapting? For me, the idea of like adapting reminds me of whenever I was much younger. Back in my younger years, we used to have a neighbor that would always come over. His name was Dustin. And we would always play football like in our neighbor's yard. It was nice and big enough to do like tackle football. It wasn't too long or anything like that. It was like nice and easy. But I noticed something whenever I was playing football and stuff, like during the winter. It was something just like so small that you wouldn't really realize at the time, but when you look back on it, you can definitely tell the difference. Now, the thing that I noticed almost immediately was, so during the winter, I would always go barefoot over to the neighbor's yard as it was getting colder and colder. As you guys can know, it tends to be weird whenever you're like barefoot in like let's say 40-degree weather, or if not colder, and there's like some snowflakes here and there, but we're still out playing football. And there's sometimes where you accidentally kick the ball, or if your foot accidentally runs into someone else's, and all types of stuff. So it's like your feet are taking a beating in this cold weather. And usually when it's colder and you tend to do that, it tends to hurt a lot more. Now, the thing that I noticed was not during the winter season, but after the winter season into springtime. After doing all that stuff to the feet, I noticed something almost immediately. So after taking quite the beating and everything with like the football, with the tackling and so on, I noticed like we have a like, it's kind of like a gravel, it's more like a rocky driveway. So it's not like tar or cement or anything like that. Nothing too fancy. It's just rocks and stuff. And sometimes we have some pointed rocks in the back. So whenever it would come to springtime and I would like go walking out there, sometimes like I would be like, man, there's some sharp rocks in this area. But for that springtime of that year, I noticed something almost immediately. I didn't feel anything. It just felt like cement, like I was just walking on flat land. But there were definitely still the pointed rocks, and there's still a bunch of other things. But I feel like the thing that ended up happening was like my body was trying to get accustomed to the idea of it. And what ended up happening was it thickened the skin on the bottoms of my feet to like try and insulate the foot more better and like reduce some of the pain and so on. And that's honestly what I think was going on. But in all honesty, adaptability is absolutely insane. It always happens like nonstop. Like there's a few other examples that I do want to use to make it slightly more easier for everyone to understand. All right, so for some of the examples of adaptability is, for example, climate. Now, climate is a big one. Like, just imagine you're getting ready to move. No matter where you're at, previously you're getting ready to move for college, or if you're just moving to get out of like your parents' house. Now, you might not get like a place in the same like town or like region or so on. You want to move far away. Now you're going to be like facing climate changes and all types of stuff, and you'll just have to like get accustomed to it, and that's where your body will just start adapting to like the different climates. So no matter like if you're going from like a much colder place to a much hotter place, your body will like for the first few months, it'll take a while to like get accustomed to it. It's kind of like trying to change your sleep schedule essentially. That's how I've always like seen it. There's like a lot of ways to make your body adapt to different scenarios. Like if you want to like get accustomed to like colder weather and allow your body to get to that point where you can actually wear shorts, you would have to start in the fall or whenever it just slightly starts getting down there in Fahrenheit and stuff like that, and just wear your normal clothes that you would wear for summertime and just see how long you can go for it. The first year you can't get it, try it the next year, and then just keep working at it until you can finally just wear shorts or whatever you guys want to wear for that like winter or like the coldest of like the year. Now I know it might not work in some like different areas where it's just like winter year long and it gets into the negative degrees, then you might not want to do it, but it is still possible to do it. But like adaptability is like a wide variety of like subjects. Like climate is just one of them. Sorry if I can't speak. I'm just like getting super nervous and I'm just like messing up on some of the words. So like I said, climate is probably a big one, but not a lot of people really think about it too often. The idea of adaptability can also be applied to your sleep schedule. If you have a job that you work early mornings, you want to go to sleep in the evenings nice and early so you can wake up and then get up. But if you have a graveyard shift job, then you'll be sleeping in the afternoons and so on. And you just have to allow your body to adapt to that point where you're just like, you know what, we're going to go to sleep at this time, wake up at that time. Personally, my sleep schedule is just almost like non-existent. I range from getting anywhere from like 4 hours. Sometimes for some reason my body wants to get 12 hours. I don't know. It's really weird for me personally. But then again, I don't think I've ever had a set sleep schedule whenever it came to like school and stuff like that. It was just always weird for me, like personally. Either I would always stay up, play video games half the time, or I would just be doing something else. I remember whenever I was much younger, I would always like stay up and watch Zorro. If some people do know what that is, it is a classic TV show that was back when the TVs were only black and white, and it was just ridiculous. Like it was when the tube TVs were super popular, and we had one that was probably about same size as my left monitor, but it had a big old like tube section in the back, so it went back quite a ways and it weighed a lot. And it's just insane like thinking about it, just like the difference from the TV to the monitor on how thin the monitor is. But anyways, so like sleep schedule is another adaptable thing, because your body will get accustomed to the idea of like, let's say for school is almost kind of like a job where you always have to show up and like keep doing work. It's usually for free, but then you learn about language and all types of stuff, and like literally you're teaching your body on how to get accustomed to things of that nature. And literally I feel like I'm just going to mispronounce this word nonstop. But literally, adaptability can be applied to like a lot of things. So, for example, language. Whenever you're really, really young, you're getting used to like talking and stuff. It's kind of hard in the very beginning. Sometimes you don't know all the words. Same with some of those like scientific words. I still don't know how to pronounce half of them, but I'm still learning every day on new words. Especially if I learn a new word, I'd like to use it half the time. And literally, when you're at that young age, you're always like working on the idea of like being able to talk fluently in like in the native tongue, essentially. So wherever you're at, if you're speaking like Spanish or like English or pretty much like any of the language like barriers, you're essentially like your body's adapting to that point of like making the right words to form out and stuff like that, because after all, it's like different parts in your throat allowing you to say like the words exactly how you want it, especially on how it sounds like, especially I said especially a lot, but you're essentially just working at that over and over again, and then eventually your body adapts to it, and then you just become just like a pro at it, essentially. But yeah, so there is a lot of ways that adaptability could be applied in everyday life. So climate, sleep, language, heck, even writing. Except for there's some scenarios where that probably won't be applied, but there's just so many examples out there. But I'm probably not the best to like really talk about it, just because I can't really word it the way that I always think about it, and I've always had like a lot of time to think about random topics, especially when I used to stack trailers. Back in the good old days, I would always stack trailers for 8 hours, and normally when it was in those days, I wouldn't really talk to anyone. Like, you'd literally be stuck in those trailers for 8 hours straight without any like way to talk to anyone. So it was either you do a few things, or you just mess around, or you just like think about just random topics. And back then I didn't have an iPod or anything like that, so I had a lot of time to think about a lot of things, and the idea of adaptability was just so happened to be one of them. And really, I've like thought of a lot of different topics and things like that, but always trying to remember what I had thought about back in those days is kind of hard for me to remember, just because it was quite a few years ago, to be honest. But yeah, but literally, the body is weird. It'll adapt to just about anything. No matter what you throw at it, you'll somehow adapt to it and then carry on with life. So if you let's say you end up injuring your arm, next thing you know, you like, if it's your left arm, if it's your dominant arm, you'll get used to working with the other arm, and eventually your body will get accustomed to it and adapt to it, to the point where you can do everything that you could. Like, you could start writing with your one arm, even though you might be terrible at first, but it'll get slightly better as it goes on, as that other arm heals, and then once it goes back to normal, then you can go back to writing with your dominant arm again. But literally, the idea of it is just so crazy that anything and everything you can literally adapt to, no matter what it is. Sometimes there's like some troubling things that you would say there's no way possible you can adapt to it. You definitely can. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I really want to talk about for adaptability. There's like a lot of like different things that you guys could add to it, but I'm probably not the best at it, just because I don't know half the words that would go along with the idea of it, and I probably won't be able to convey it that well either. And that's just going to be one of those things that I just need to work on, and maybe sometime in the future we can come back and talk about it, but probably with like another person, so we can get their like aspects on it and like viewpoints and stuff like that. But anyways, thank you guys for watching today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys have not. Like the video, comment down below any other topics you guys want me to cover. Like I said, we are going to be doing this for a year solo, and then after that we'll ask some of the people that we probably like met through games or through streams and so on. There are a few rules to like join up for the podcast. You have to be 18 plus, just in case some of those topics end up reaching some of those mature conversations. And there's probably like a few other rules, but I kind of forget what they are. I'll be sure to write them down next time. But anyways, thank you guys for watching today's podcast. I am TrickyMist, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Okay, have a great rest of your day, and see ya.